Imagine walking down a busy street. Someone bumps into you hard, spills coffee on your new shirt, and doesn't even apologize. In that split second, what happens? Your heart races. Heat rises to your face. A voice in your head screams, "How dare they?" You spin around, ready to shout, ready to escalate, ready to fight. But pause. Freeze that frame. Look at yourself in that moment. Are you free, or are you being controlled? Most of us live our entire lives on autopilot. We are like puppets, and the world holds the strings. A rude comment pulls the string of anger. A piece of bad news pulls the string of anxiety. A lack of likes on a photo pulls the string of insecurity. We think we are living, but we are merely reacting. We are bouncing from one emotional trigger to the next, completely at the mercy of external events. And the cost? The cost is your peace, your relationships, and your ability to actually build the life you want. Today, we are going to cut those strings. We are going deeper than the usual surface-level advice of take a deep breath. Over the next hour, we are going to dissect the psychology and philosophy of non-reaction. We will explore 10 transformative lessons that will teach you how to master your internal state, regardless of the chaos happening outside. By the end of this video, you won't just learn how to suppress anger or hide sadness. You will learn the art of response. You will learn how to stand in the eye of the storm and remain completely still. This isn't about becoming a robot without feelings. It is about becoming a master who chooses which feelings get a seat at the table. Welcome to the power of not reacting. To control your emotions, you first have to understand the machinery running them. You need to know that your brain isn't actually designed for your happiness. It is designed for your survival. When you get triggered, whether it's an insult from a boss or a text message left on read, your brain doesn't see a social inconvenience. The ancient part of your brain, the amygdala, perceives a threat to your existence. It hits the panic button before your rational brain, the prefrontal cortex, even wakes up. This is what we call the amygdala hijack. It floods your system with cortisol and adrenaline. This is why when you are angry, you literally can't think straight. Your IQ drops, your empathy vanishes. You are operating on software that is millions of years old, meant to fight saber-toothed tigers, not navigate complex social hierarchies. Understanding this is the first step to freedom. When you feel that surge of heat, you can now label it. You can say, "This is not me. This is biology. This is a false alarm." The trap most people fall into is identifying with the sensation. They think, "I am angry." But a more accurate thought is, "I am experiencing a biological sensation of anger." The moment you create that separation, the moment you realize you are the observer of the sensation, not the sensation itself, the reaction loses its power. You stop being the puppet. You realize that the chemical flush of anger only lasts about 90 seconds. If you are still angry after that, it is because you have chosen to reignite the fire with your thoughts. Lesson 1 is simple but profound. Do not trust your first impulse. It is biology, not reality. Viktor Frankl, a psychiatrist and Holocaust survivor, famously said, "Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom." Most of us live our lives without that space. Stimulus happens and response follows instantly. Someone insults you, stimulus. You insult them back, response. The gap is closed. Your goal is to pry that gap open. You need to widen the space between what happens to you and what you do about it. This is the practice of the sacred pause. It is the ability to endure the discomfort of not doing anything. When the urge to react is strongest, that is when the pause is most necessary. Silence is an answer. Inaction is an action. When you are triggered, try to institute a mandatory waiting period. If it's an email that makes your blood boil, the rule is you cannot reply for 24 hours. If it's a verbal argument, the rule is to take 3 deep, slow breaths before speaking. During this pause, something magical happens. The amygdala hijack we talked about in Lesson 1 begins to fade. The cortisol washes out of your system. Your prefrontal cortex, the logical, rational, human part of your brain, comes back online. Suddenly, you see options. You realize that snapping back will only hurt your reputation. You realize the other person is likely projecting their own pain. The pause turns a destructive reaction into a constructive response. It transforms you from a victim of circumstance into a master of strategy. There is a misconception that detachment means you don't care, that it means you are cold or indifferent. This is false. Strategic detachment means you care too much about your own peace to let it be held hostage by others. It is the realization that you can observe a storm without standing in the rain. Imagine you are watching a movie. When the main character goes through a tragedy, you feel empathy. You might even cry. But you don't run out of the theater screaming, because you know you are separate from the screen. In life, you must learn to view your own drama as if it were a movie. This is often called distancing. When you are in a high-conflict situation, zoom out. Imagine looking at yourself from the ceiling. See yourself arguing. See the other person shouting. From this new vantage point, the situation often looks ridiculous, or at least manageable. It loses its emotional grip on you. You stop taking things personally because you see the mechanics of the interaction from a distance. Strategic detachment also involves understanding what is yours and what is theirs. Most negative behavior from others is a reflection of their internal state, not your value. If someone cuts you off in traffic, it's about their hurry, their stress, their lack of attention, not about you. When you detach, you hand their baggage back to them. You say, silently, "This is your chaos. I refuse to accept it as a gift." By maintaining this boundary, you protect your energy. You preserve your mental resources for the things that actually matter to you, rather than wasting them on defensive reactions. Now that we've established the biological pause, we need a framework to measure the size of the problem. Often, we react to a spilled drink with the same intensity as a car crash. We lack emotional proportion. To fix this, I want to introduce you to the 10-10-10 rule. Whenever you feel that urge to explode or to spiral into anxiety, ask yourself 3 questions. Will this matter in 10 minutes? Will this matter in 10 months? Will this matter in 10 years? 99% of the things triggering you right now will fail the 10 months test, let alone the 10 years test. That guy who cut you off in traffic, you won't remember his car color by dinner time. The rude comment on your video? It will be buried under new content in a week. When you realize that the event is temporary, your reaction should shrink to match it. You are essentially borrowing stress from a future that doesn't exist. By applying this timeline, you stop treating minor inconveniences as catastrophes. It forces your brain to zoom out. When you look at your life from the perspective of 10 years, today's drama looks like a speck of dust. And you don't scream at a speck of dust. You brush it off and keep moving. This lesson is about conservation of energy. You have a limited amount of emotional fuel every day. Why burn it all on things that won't even be a footnote in your biography? Let's get uncomfortable for a moment. Why do insults hurt? Why does criticism sting? It's not because of the words themselves. Words are just sound waves. It hurts because your ego is standing in the way, trying to defend a fragile image of yourself. The ego is like an invisible bodyguard that is constantly paranoid, looking for threats. When someone questions your intelligence or your looks, the ego screams, "Defend me, attack them." True power comes from realizing that you are not your ego. If you know who you are, validation from others becomes a luxury, not a necessity. Think about it. If you are holding a blue pen and someone screams at you, "That pen is red," do you get angry? No. You might be confused or you might laugh, but you don't feel threatened because you know the pen is blue. The truth needs no defense. When you react defensively, you are implicitly agreeing that there might be truth to the attack. You are signaling insecurity. The next time you feel triggered, ask yourself, what part of me is feeling threatened right now? Is it my pride? My need to be right? My need to be liked? Once you identify the ego as the source of the pain, you can step aside. You can let the insult pass right through you, hitting nothing, because you have removed the target. Epictetus, the Stoic philosopher, taught that men are not disturbed by things, but by the view which they take of them. This is the core of Lesson 6, Narrative Control. Events are neutral. Reality is just data. It is raining is data. This rain ruined my day is a story. He didn't text back is data. He hates me and I'm unlovable is a story. We suffer not because of what happens, but because of the story we tell ourselves about what happened. The power of not reacting lies in your ability to edit the script in real time. When a negative event happens, you have the authority to assign the meaning. If you lose your job, the immediate reaction is panic. The story is, "I am a failure." But if you pause and rewrite the narrative, the story becomes, "This is the push I needed to finally start my own business." Same event, completely different emotional outcome. You must become the editor of your own life. When you feel a negative emotion rising, check the story attached to it. Is it true? Is it helpful? Usually, we assume the worst-case scenario. We assume malice where there's only ignorance. We assume rejection where there's only busyness. Change the story, and you change the chemical reaction in your body. You move from being a victim of the plot to the writer of the script. Sometimes the source of your stress isn't a random event, but a specific person, a toxic coworker, a manipulative family member, or a troll online. These people feed on reaction. They are drama vampires. They poke you to get a rise because your anger validates their power. If you fight back, they win. If you cry, they win. The only way to win is to become a gray rock. The gray rock method is a behavioral strategy where you become as uninteresting and unresponsive as a rock. You give short, dull answers. Okay, I see, maybe. You show zero emotion. You offer no personal information. You do not engage in the argument. When you stop feeding them the emotional reaction they crave, they eventually get bored and move on to an easier target. This is the ultimate form of not reacting because it is weaponized boredom. It requires immense self-control because every fiber of your being wants to set the record straight. But you must remember, you cannot reason with irrationality. You cannot win a game that is rigged. By refusing to play, by refusing to react, you maintain your dignity and your sanity. You are protecting your peace by creating a wall of indifference that they cannot climb. We often react because we are fighting reality. We have a picture in our heads of how the world should be. Traffic should be fast, people should be polite, plans should go perfectly. And when reality clashes with that picture, we snap. This gap between expectation and reality is the breeding ground for frustration. Lesson 8 is about closing that gap through radical acceptance. This doesn't mean you approve of everything bad that happens. It means you stop arguing with the fact that it is happening. Think of it like getting a flat tire in the rain. You can stand there kicking the tire, screaming at the sky, ruining your mood for the next week. Or you can look at the tire and say, this is happening. The tire is flat regardless of your anger. The rain is wet regardless of your shouting. By accepting the isness of the moment, you stop wasting energy on why me and start focusing on what now. Radical acceptance acts as a coolant for your emotions. It removes the friction. When you stop resisting the present moment, you gain clarity. You realize that pain is inevitable in life. But suffering is optional. Suffering comes from the reaction, from the resistance. When you simply accept the event as a neutral occurrence in a chaotic universe, you free up the mental bandwidth to actually fix the problem. You become a problem solver, not a complainer. In a world that can't stop talking, silence is the loudest sound you can make. We are conditioned to believe that every accusation needs a defense and every question needs an answer. But often, over-explaining is a sign of weakness. It shows you are desperate to be understood. Lesson 9 teaches you to use silence as a tool of dominance and composure. When someone attacks you verbally and you stay completely silent, maintaining eye contact, you flip the script. This silence creates a vacuum. The other person expects resistance to push against. When you give them nothing, they stumble. They become self-conscious. They start filling the silence with backpedaling or more nonsense, exposing their own foolishness. Your silence signals that their behavior is beneath your response. It signals that you are so secure in your position that you don't need to bark to prove you are a lion. Furthermore, silence allows you to listen, really listen. While they are ranting, you are gathering data. You are analyzing their motives, their insecurities, and their arguments. By the time you finally do speak, your words will be surgical. They will be precise, calm, and devastatingly effective because they were born out of silence, not noise. Learn to be comfortable with the awkward pause. In that pause, you hold all the cards. The final lesson is about the long game. Not reacting is not a one-time trick. It is a lifestyle investment. Every time you choose not to snap, every time you choose the pause over the explosion, you are building a reputation. You are building character equity. People start to see you differently. They see you as the rock in the storm. They trust you more because you are predictable and stable. Think of your emotional control like a bank account. Every time you lose your temper, you make a withdrawal. You lose trust, you lose respect, and you lose authority. But every time you keep your cool, you make a deposit. Over weeks, months, and years, this compounds. You become the leader people look to in a crisis. You become the partner who makes the relationship safe. You become the parent who raises emotionally healthy children. This consistency rewires your brain. Neuroplasticity is real. If you practice anger daily, you become a master of anger. Your brain builds highways for rage. But if you practice non-reaction, your brain builds highways for calm. Eventually, it doesn't take effort anymore. Being unbothered becomes your default setting. You stop pretending to be calm and actually become calm. This is the ultimate freedom, to walk through fire and not get burned. So why go through all this effort? Why bite your tongue? Why swallow your pride? Why do the hard work of rewiring your biology? Because your peace is expensive, and you cannot afford to let just anyone buy it with cheap behavior. We live in a society that thrives on outrage. The news, social media, the algorithm, it all wants a reaction from you. It wants to harvest your attention and your emotion. When you master the art of not reacting, you are engaging in an act of rebellion. You are reclaiming your sovereignty. You are declaring that your internal state is a fortress that cannot be breached by traffic jams, rude comments, or bad luck. You are giving yourself the greatest gift possible, a life lived on your own terms, driven by your own values, not steered by your impulses. The journey we've walked through today, from the biological trap to radical acceptance, is not easy. You will fail. You will snap. You will have days where the puppet strings get pulled. That is okay. Forgive yourself and start again. The goal isn't perfection. The goal is progress. As you click off this video and go back into the world, remember this. You have a superpower waiting to be used. The next time chaos knocks on your door, you don't have to open it. You can sit back, take a breath, and watch it pass. That is the power of not reacting. That is the power of you. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.